We must be the hands that reach around the world to all women, because we do not want for our children a world in terror of war, the genocide of drugs, annihilation by AIDS, a planet choked and breathless. We live in a state of emergency that demands choice and decision, rebellion and action. We must be the storms to the seas beating, the rivers rising, thunder's great rumble, an arc of lightning, a conduit of power, a bridge of multicolored hands that join and extend over chasms of inequity, starvation, homelessness, immeasurable need, and indifference to the poor. Yes, we must be the hands that link with all women, who reveal the secrets, who tell the truth, march with their power, and who fight for our lives. Glide is a place that accepts people. It is a home for people who feel homeless regardless of their class and financial means, their color and religious background, regardless of whether or not they have a home. In addition to the 3,500 free meals served daily, of which over 1/3 are served to single mothers with children, we also distribute infant formula each day and diapers free in our crisis center. Over 6,200 diapers were given out in 1 month. There's a crisis in America, and that crisis is facing women. Women of color, especially African American women, are the fastest growing population at risk for the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Out of 317 randomly interviewed women at Glide's STD HIV AIDS clinic, 70% were African American, 10% were Hispanic, 3% Native American, 1% Asian American, and 14% white, with 2 of mixed races. 83% of the women interviewed do not practice safer sex consistently and, of course, are at a higher risk for the HIV/AIDS virus. 95% of the women interviewed admitted to using crack cocaine. 29% traded sex for drugs. 53% traded sex for money. I think that issues for women, that those problems that women have been facing historically are now coming to the fore. Issues like incest and drug abuse, issues like battering, issues like abandonment, issues of being a survivor of divorce, issues of being poor. At Glide, we are wrestling with the dangers. We have programs that are designed to empower women, to educate and help them help themselves, and help each other.
You know, our mothers get hard on us, our kids get hard on us. That's all a part of life. But see, it's about today, what we're trying to accomplish for ourselves today. You know, and it's just like on the terms of resistance, a rebirth to a new life. That's right. You know, and it's like
we found that in this program, at least 90 to 95% of the women are victims and survivors of incest and sexual abuse. It's something that they bring in with them. It's part of the baggage that they bring in with them when they come into us.
You know, we're human beings on this earth trying to change.
That's right.
You know, that you're here with us.
That's right.
You trying. Okay? You was woman enough to stand up and to make a change for yourself. But from experience, I know, okay, that shame, I held that shame around me for 3 years of trying to be a recovering addict, and look where I'm at today. I'm back trying it all over again. You gotta let it go.
If you don't let it go, it's gonna trigger you all into other areas.
You can't explain that to 7-8-year-old.
Yes, you can.
You can show him. You can show him through your actions. Let it go.
One day at a time.
I just think shame is another way that we've learned to oppress ourselves, and we got to let that go. We got to let all of that go.
Unlearn.
we have to acknowledge that women of different cultures do have different needs and do have different perspectives and do have a different history. You know, Cecil often says, I'm not the only messenger here. He says, I'm not the only prophet. There are prophets that are walking in the street. There are prophets who are sleeping in the doorways. There are prophets who are coming into our dining room and eating. Well, the women here are prophets. The women here are opening the doors of the tomb, and they're hearing each other, and they're believing each other, and they're passing it on.
I grew up with this secret that was so huge that eventually I totally shut down so that I wasn't real at all anymore. When you're talking about tears, I mean, crying's real. All humans cry. And we all cry here in the church, and I cried for 6 months solid when I came here. And I never cried in my house. And I was being molested by my father. And I never cried there because I couldn't cry. I couldn't reveal anything because I couldn't reveal the primary reality of what was going on with me. Because sexuality is so primary and primal that when that is being stolen from us by our perpetrators, we have the most primary trauma going on that I think anybody can have. Before I came to Glide, my life was really sectioned off. I'm an attorney, and I became an attorney to work on social justice issues, and I worked a lot with men. And then I started to remember my incest, and my incest I did in rooms with women. And therapy groups and anonymous groups, although, you know, I owe a lot to anonymous groups, are not reality. They're something you do off in a room by yourselves. And when this group started, I kept saying over and over again, this is real. I sing in the choir here. I see all of you once or twice a week. This is the reality of my life.
The one thing that I wanted to do was to be able to love people because I wanted to love them, not because I felt like I had to. And I was no longer stereotyped by name calling or having an old maid aunt tell her boyfriend that I don't want you sitting by her because, you know, she's got a reputation. When men were not my preference in the first place. And to have a man sit on a witness stand and tell a judge that the reason why he raped me as a 12-year-old child was because I was too masculine. And he was trying to make me be a woman. This was supposed to make it all right.
And I also have a sister that was also, she was also raped, and by her being raped, that helped me to deal with my issues because I wasn't dealing with it. It was only until it had happened to her. And I want to say that the person that had raped her was my uncle. And when I was a child, he was on heroin. And it's like, it's still hard, you know, for me to say, you know, like he raped me. It's still hard for me to say that.
It was my stepfather initially that incested me. He would do terrible things to me from the time I was 3 years old. And originally I thought it was until I was 7. It might have been longer because I'm just recently finding out that he was still alive when I was a teenager, and I thought he had died. And then later on in my life, it was my father who actually approached me. I think I was 23 years old, and my father came into the picture, I thought, as my rescuer, because I was at that time dealing with some very wild and reckless people, and all of a sudden here was Dad, and I thought, oh gee, really, here's my father, he will get these people off of me. But no, in fact, he too turned out to be part of the problem, part of the major part of the problem, sent me into serious therapy.
I was molested by my father and my several uncles and aunts and assorted family members, and I am also a survivor of childhood ritual abuse. My mother and my father and my aunt and the pediatrician and several other neighbors, and I don't know who all else, participated in some kind of a religious ceremonies, I guess you would call them. The focus was trying to get the evil out of me. So this was not about Satanism. This was all done in the name of God and in the name of goodness, and I was the bad one. And all my life, I could never, I just, you know, I mean, they gave me that message loud and clear, and I bought it, you know. I just bought it, and I knew that I was defective and that there was something wrong with me. So I got drunk all the time, and then I found drugs, so I did drugs all the time. And meanwhile, my life happened, but, you know, that was almost incidental. And
I wasn't incested by a relative. It was my father's boss. From the time I was 11 years old, I became his housekeeper, through the time I was 15 years old and got out of the house, got married to get away from the house. And I confessed this to a priest at 13, and he raped me. Because he said he wanted me to understand that although he was a priest, he was a man first. So for me, it was like I went into the drugs, into the alcohol. I went through 2 marriages, being totally beat up and raped by a whole lot of men since that point. But I'm so glad that I dealt with that. And I know if I couldn't scream while it was being done, I'm going to shout real loud. Thereafter, yeah.
Now, there's no shame in being an incest survivor. I am now not ashamed because it was not my fault. I didn't cause it, I didn't do it, and there was nothing I could have done to stop it.
Bride is a place that especially accepts and empowers women and struggles to create the relationships of equality and mutuality. It is a place where women can be sisters, can be mirrors for each other.
What causes us to break the pattern? Because I know that my mother fulfilled a pattern that her grandmother lived. And that was to endure. That was just to be quiet and just get over it.
Our parents dare not reach out, but we do. That's the difference.
We're not isolated, you know.
We're reaching
have a
out
community.
and we're talking and we're asking for help. Our parents dare not do that. I had to tell my son the other day, he's still practicing alcoholic, and I seen him up the street, and he'd been drinking, you know. So I told him, I says, well, you know, I don't like you around me when you're drinking, acting the way you are. So he says, well, I learned it from my mom. You learn how to party. This really messed me up. And then I said, well, you know, you say that every time I see you like this. Learn something else from me.
Well,
Learn how to live the day like I'm living.
That's right.
And deal with it like that. He didn't want to talk to me anymore after that.
Good for you.
And I said, as a matter of fact, it's time for you to go.
praise the Lord, yeah.
You know, and kind of messed me up the rest of the evening, but at least I
But
was
you
able to.
liberated yourself.
Yeah.
That's right. You did. You liberated
And now
yourself.
he has choice.
Yes,
back
that's
on
right.
him.
That's
He has
right.
choice, girl.
It's his. That's right. It's his life.
For all of my life, as a child, as a teenager, my mother would say, if it wasn't for you guys, I could have been this. If it wasn't for you, I would have been this and this. And I tell my daughters, I'm doing whatever I do for me, and you do your own thing.
it's taking
You do your own
responsibility.
thing.
I mean,
And
that makes us not
leave
like
at
us,
18 and
folks.
decide.
That's
You know, and they still call, Mama, what do you think about this? What do you think? I said, well, if it were me, you know, I would do. But you need to, you make your own decision. You need to do what you need to do. And as much as I love children and I want them to always be a part of my life, they have to be decision makers. They have to be choice makers, you know.
Interacting with everybody here, all the women, has taught me that I'm lovable, because that's something I really did not know. My incest does not define me anymore. It doesn't define me. It doesn't limit my life, and that's important. You know, I'm just in Tony now.
Yeah, you is. The only hope for recovery from incest and violence, from rape and violation, is to break the silence, to reveal ourselves, to mirror each other, to validate our feelings. Then we know it is not our fault, and we know we are not alone. Then we start to shatter the shame. The non-anonymous telling
The public revelation allows this family, this community, to become the healers, not only of ourselves, but of each other.
When Cecil opened up for all of us to share, I stood up in front of the congregation, and I'm pretty comfortable with public speaking, and I shook from my little toe to the last hair on my head. I have never been so scared. And one of the men from the choir, Roosevelt, came up and just sat quietly in the pew ahead of me. And I knew he was there so that if I fell, he would catch me. And I'll never, ever forget him for that. And that was the first man who had ever encountered personally my incest. And it was such a wonderful way for me to break out of that isolation with women. And that's the kind of healing we're talking about, where we get to feel human again.
I am what I will be. I have graced the heads of young and elder queens. I sing to your rhythm and contain my own rhythm. I add to the meaning thereof. Like a messenger, I spread the word and you receive.
I have been trying to work out within myself how to confront my mother. And then we had the cultural night, and my mother came. I had invited her, but she said she couldn't make it. And she came, and I didn't know she was here until afterwards. And afterwards, it was miraculous. This lady came to me and said that she had no idea that I had been carrying around that much pain all those years. She had no idea that I felt that she had contributed to it. And she offered herself as a vehicle for my healing. What was so wonderful was that the vehicle for that healing, that bridging, happened right here at Glide. It happened here.
One day I would have to tell. Letting go of the secret has been the most healing thing for me in terms of my incest, and the fact that I'm doing it publicly. That's not something I would have done on my own, and it took being a part of this community to do that. I'm very grateful, you know, I'm extremely grateful. You know, my life is not perfect by any means at this point, but you know, I don't wake up with the kind of despair that I used to wake up with and not understand why,
I love the blues, but we need to sing the joys. Full-throated soprano, sweet, quick, slow, spiraling to the goddess, and the space where pain was will be filled with a wonder rarely seen. Ourselves lovely, whole, and laughing through our lives. And maybe little girls seeing us will learn to open themselves to joy unlimited. And the chain of pain that binds us can be broken, starting right here, right now. Starting right here, right now. Starting right here, right now with you.
Coming here, you know, it was like I got to see there's nothing wrong with me. And sometimes I still ask myself that question, you know, something happens and it's like, is something wrong with me? And it's like, it's so important that people tell me there's nothing wrong with me. That I really am okay and I'm really valuable, I'm really worthy, you know. And it's like, you talked about rape. You know, incest and rape are only two crimes I know where the people who are the victims feel shame. You get robbed, people don't run around and go, oh, I'm so ashamed of being robbed. They say, I've been robbed. You know, you're incested or you raped, and all of a sudden the women go, oh, maybe I did something wrong. You know, that's so crazy. Because and it's because it's women. I really believe it's because it was women. It was against men, it would be different. And so it's, you know, it's important to me that I have this group. It's important to me that I have Glide. It's important to me that I have some place where I can know that I am a good person and I'm worthwhile.
I will save my soul. I will live gracefully in my skin. I take back the power they stole from me. I walk in the sun with my head high, knowing I am one of many. No longer a victim, not even just a survivor, but a strong woman standing tall with the power to create beauty from chaos.
Yes,
I expected to see any spirituality would be in a church. The very last place I thought it would show up. You know, people just talk about God and then do what the hell they want to do, you know? And I come here and I find it everywhere, just everywhere. And it's in the walking, it's in the talking, it's in the being. We do it, we don't just talk it. It's tangible here. And it makes me so happy.
When I came in '89 to Glide and started to really deal with the issues, you know, at that time it was like I was dying. You know, emotionally and spiritually I was dying. The isolation has been very hard. That has been very hard. It's like I said, as a child, there was no one there for me. And I'm very thankful for Cecil and Glide. And, I mean, it's not just, like I'm starting to accept my creative talents more and wanting to do something with it. And that's a very beautiful feeling.
No more will I hide in the shadows. No more will I speak with a silent voice. I will reclaim the seed that gave me life. I will listen and listen, speak and speak and love to all the children. Thank you.
And my relationship with Glide is to come out from behind those different hiding places and revealing. Sometimes it's painful to reveal that you're sexist, that you're racist, and it's very difficult to reveal that. But Cecil and Glide, and I think, you know, Jan, especially, I know she's broken down a lot of barriers for me as far as saying that you don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to be what other people expect you to be, or what you, mainly for me, what you expect you should be in order to be accepted. And I think that people who have suffered any kinds of abuse need to know that they don't have to hide anymore. And this is what Glide does for us.
Now when you start lifting up the rock, don't get scared and let it go down again.
For over 29 years, Reverend Cecil Williams, the minister of Glide Church, has been creating platforms for the outcast, for the disenfranchised, for the voiceless, for the rejected, for the poor. 10 of those years, Reverend Cecil Williams and I have been married to each other. It would have been so easy for me to hide behind me being the minister's wife, to close my doors, to just be a face.
I know what's happening with me. That's what I said. But I didn't know how little I knew until I got up and I publicly said to all of you and to all that congregation that I had been incested for 11 years of my life. And I didn't know that there was this huge vault that had been locked up and sealed for all those years. And when I said those words and the vault flew open and I had no more protection, I had no more cover, I had nothing. And a door swung wide open and I couldn't close it. And as much as I tried, I couldn't close it up. This is very hard for me to talk about. Because you could really think so badly of me. And you make me lose face. And that's very cultural, you know, to not lose face, to not show your feelings. So if you give me the safety and the freedom to say it and to be able to show my face without losing it, without you raping me or ripping me off or using it against me, then each time I do it, I can risk a little bit more.
We must tie these threads of memory, continue ourselves with power, join each other with justice, wrap ourselves in grace, men with love, and always with your own voice, sing your own song.
In our hands are the destinies of our lives. It is up to us, but we need one another. We must be the bridge of hands that stretch across our communities to touch the poor, the rejected, those who have been extinguished by crack or heroin or alcohol or battering or incest. We must be the hands that soothe and comfort and applaud and speak and hold and protect and set free. Hands that rock us in the bosom, because those hands are ours and yours and you are me, and we will be the infinity of hands mirrored through pain, joy, and liberation. The journey begins today.